It's still my jam. Alrighty, we are back in business. I'm sorry, I know it has been a very long time since part 1 came out. I will clarify all that at the end of the video with what I have to say. But until then, I just have to say, Metal Masters is my favorite part, and I'm going to talk about it. I cannot wait. So, without further ado, let's do this. Let's go, Beyblade, let it rip. Metal Masters, let it rip. Beyblade, Beyblade, let it rip. This is it. Get a grip, let it rip. Metal Masters is a direct sequel to Metal Fusion, and Metal Masters picks up immediately from where Metal Fusion left off. And we see a new character get off a plane. Okay, we then refamiliarize ourselves with the cast, and we are a go. Jinga's all down in the dumps because Storm Pegasus is spirited away, but it's all good because he's gonna get a new, ancient, legendary bay. Ooh, how cool and mysterious. Before that, though, we are introduced to the newest character of the cast. He declares himself the #1 blader. He is the deuteragonist of Metal Masters, and he is the most well-written character in all of the Metal Saga. I'm not joking. His name is Masamune Kadoya.
Ha! This looks like a fun little battle. Let me play too. Huh? My name is Masamune Kadoya, and I'm the #1 blader in the entire world!
I want to talk more about this guy because he's tied with Ryuga as my favorite character, but I'll leave it until his real introduction. Until then, all we know about him is that he's trying to find and battle Jinga. While this is going on, Jinga finds his new Bay, Galaxy Pegasus, and he is pretty pumped about it, but it's here that Masamune catches up to our cast and challenges Jinga before promptly getting defeated by Jinga. Now, the caveat to this is that Jinga wasn't able to control Pegasus during the battle, but regardless, Jinga has his bay and does win against Masamune. Masamune then proceeds to spend the rest of the episode challenging and losing to Jinga. We end up getting some insight into Masamune's personality here. He is a true shonen protagonist, never giving up on defeating Jinga, and he does succeed in defeating Jinga by the end of the episode. In doing this, he ends up motivating Jinga to look at the piece of plastic and metal in his hand as a partner instead of a tool, and Jinga does gain control over Pegasus. Whoop-de-frickin-do. I guess that we're all good. Now I'm going to explain why Masamune works so well. Masamune is perceived by a lot of people as annoying, and I don't even mean in-universe. There are a lot of people who watched Metal Masters as a kid, but they don't like Masamune. In fact, I bet there's a lot of comments on screen right now showing that. However, I am not one of those people. Masamune is fantastic, and I genuinely love the guy even at the beginning of Metal Masters. He injects so much energy into the cast. He just shows up and challenges everyone to a fight. It feels like he has so much agency, even in a series where the main plot is basically entirely disconnected from Masamune's initial goals and wants. The reason why it feels like he has agency is because he inserts himself into every interaction. He refuses to be a side character, and that's great. He's great. However, the thing that separates Masamune from the other characters is that he has very visible character flaws. He's loud, cocky, brash, and petty. He never backs down, and he always declares himself to be the #1 blader without hesitation, even when he hasn't even beat an opponent in a battle. He declares himself better than Jinga even though he consistently lost over and over again. He just, as he says it himself, declared himself #1 a bit early. He is just so different from every other character, and because of this, just seeing him interact with other characters always results in interesting and fun interactions. Just for example, we get to see him get under the skin of Jinga and Yu, and it's great because we don't get to see these sides of these characters. Not usually, not without Masamune there. We didn't get these sides before. And as Metal Masters progresses, we see Masamune undergo a series-long character arc that starts from all the way with the first episode of Metal Masters to the very final episode of Metal Masters. We see him transition from an energetic, cocky, and brash guy to a much more humble character that, while still keeping his energetic nature, is much more mature and understands his own weaknesses and works to improve it while not losing sight of the things he truly cares about and wants to fight over. I will be talking more about Masamune going forward, I will especially be pointing out his major character moments that he experiences throughout the series. Anyways, we are then introduced to another two characters, Chiyun and Meimei, who promptly challenge Jinga, and Masamune kind of jumps in too, to a team battle. They wreck them with teamwork, and Jinga and Masamune keep hitting each other until they realize that they can just have their bays attack from the same direction in order to not freaking attack each other and keep inflicting unnecessary damage. Oh my goodness. Truly, only the most sophisticated of team strategies are allowed in this series of Beyblade battles. It's here that we're introduced to the main plot of Metal Masters. There's a world tournament, and different teams from different countries each choose 3 main members and maybe 1 sub-member to represent their country. Chiyun and Meimei revealed that they're both members of the Chinese team, with Meimei being the sub-member. And that's the setup for Metal Masters. Yep, it's mainly just a tournament arc, and honestly, that's great. Beyblade is at its best when it's showing over-the-top, explosive battles. It's a really good setting because it means that the series never really loses its focus, and doesn't really get sidetracked, because it's always going to lead up to the tournament. Before the tournament though, Japan has to pick its team, and it's here we get the first set of important battles. Jinga's already on the team because he won Battle Blader, so now there are only 2 spots and 1 sub-member spot left. The qualifier tournament is simple and good. It's fast and to the point. The first round is essentially just a point gathering thing, where all the characters try to get as many points as possible, and it's essentially just our time to kind of establish hierarchy within the cast. In that most of the cast of Metal Fusion is not going to be present here, okay? Because they're just not strong enough, you know? Hell, right from the get-go, Masamune defeats Kenta in this round, and Kenta does not qualify for the second round of the qualifier tournament. It's sad, really, to see him not get to fulfill these kinds of dreams, this grand ambition, but it makes sense, though. So the second round of the qualifier tournament starts, and it's just the top 4 winners of the previous round. The first battle is Masamune versus Yu. It's a good battle with a lot of push and pull from both sides, and it ends with Masamune claiming victory. And just like that, Masamune has already, at the beginning of the series, defeated one of the main antagonists of Metal Fusion. Yeah, just like that. It's a good way to establish Masamune's potential early on going forward, you know? The second battle is Tsubasa vs. Kiyoya, and again, it's a solid battle. It's cool because it's kind of a what-if scenario. What if Tsubasa had beat Ryuga in Battle Bladers? Who would have won? We get that here. Both are fairly evenly matched with one another, but Kiyoya just wants him more and gets the upper hand, but Tsubasa starts getting this evil, dark aura and fights back before Kiyoya powers through and wins. Kiyoya then reveals to Jinga that he wants to battle Jinga and not be on the same team, and he wanders off. So he kinda just chose to waste everyone's time. You do you, Kiyoya. The final battle would have determined the sub, but since Kiyoya stepped out, Tsubasa and Yu are guaranteed a spot on the team. This is really just the battle to determine which person is the main member and which member is the sub-member. The battle between the 2 former main antagonists ends with Tsubasa winning, so now Team Gangan Galaxy is Jinga, Masamune, Tsubasa, and with Yu as a sub. Also, Madoka is a support member. There's a support member spot, but we don't see any other teams with a support member, with maybe one exception. So this is really just an excuse to get Madoka to come along, so she can vomit her freaking exposition. But now the cast is on their way, and their first opponent is the Chinese team, Wang Huzhang.
Let me introduce them. These are Japan's representatives, Team Gangan Galaxy in the flesh.
Please excuse my rudeness. I am the leader of China's representatives. Our name is Team Wang Huzhang. I am Deshayan Wang.
You're China's team leader? Deshayan Wang.
Wang Huzhang is an interesting bunch. They are the first real opponents of the cast battles, and we were going into China already knowing 2 of the members. While in China, the main cast meets Deshayan Wang, the team leader, and the third member, Chao Xin, who Masamune battles and loses to. Plus, they also freaking destroy a part of the Great Wall of China. What the hell? They should both be arrested for freaking terrorism, but, you know, whatever. Wang Huzhang has a similar role to Kiyoya in Metal Fusion. They are antagonists early on in the series, but after being defeated, they become friends/rivals with our main characters going forward, and they help our main characters as the series progresses, so that's all great. I think I should bring it up here, but there is an interesting aspect of the World Tournament introduced here. That is information gathering. There's an emphasis placed on the importance of knowing the opponent's Bey and abilities ahead of time, because knowing them ahead of time puts a team in an advantageous position in the tournament. For example, when the cast meets Deshayan, he acts all friendly with Jinga to get him to battle with him and reveal how destructive his special move is. Luckily, Masamune sees through it and manages to put a stop to it, but that's pretty interesting. And like I said, even though it is interesting, it does end up kind of falling flat later in the series because all you have to do is apply any amount of thought to it. It's fine in the first round, but it falls flat the longer the series goes on, and I'll explain why going down the line. Regardless though, the World Tournament is fought in 2 out of 3 matches. Pretty straightforward, but the main cast doesn't learn about this until they are already in China. They are really behind the curve, like god damn. They don't even know the own tournament's rules until the first round is about to start. But even then again, it's not like the WBBA actually enforces any kind of actual rules with the tournament, as we will see going forward down the line. It's kind of crazy actually. The rules are so freaking malleable. But whatever, you will see this going down the line. Anyways, the first round starts, and the first battle is Masamune versus Chaoshin. As mentioned before, Masamune lost to Chaoshin, so this is a rematch between the two of them. And to prepare for this, Masamune had spent the day before training with an old man he met, and learned how to properly use Striker's power by focusing it into a single point whenever it strikes to deal the maximum amount of damage. Good stuff. This is the battling style that Masamune will use throughout the rest of the Metal Master, so it's pretty cool to see him properly hone his Bey's abilities here. The battle ends with Masamune winning. The second battle is between Tsubasa and Chiyun, and I'm going to keep it real. Chiyun destroys Tsubasa in this fight. There is never a moment in the fight until the very end where Tsubasa has any kind of actual advantage over Chiyun. Chiyun reads Tsubasa like an easy reads book. Chiyun successfully defends, dodges, and counters almost every single move that Tsubasa throws at him. It's kinda crazy how much Chiyun outplayed Tsubasa here. The turning point though is when Chiyun throws away all his technique and has Lacerda, his Bey, start attacking Eagle with raw strength in order to egg Tsubasa on to show his true power. Tsubasa gets his evil, dark aura again and starts pushing back. And he almost wins actually, but Eagle kind of self-destructs and flies out of the arena on its own, which ultimately leaves Chiyun the winner. The third battle is between Jinga and Deshayan. It's actually a pretty good battle in my opinion, because there's a large emphasis placed on the character side of things. It's a battle of ideals. We focus on what both characters are fighting for and the weight of the hope and expectations they carry. Deshayan tries to put Jinga down because he has 4,000 years of Bailin Temple history riding on his shoulders. Yeah, that's right, Bailin Temple. They have this whole martial arts dedicated to Beyblade with some of the weirdest freaking movements I've ever seen, but whatever. But Jinga realizes that even without this history on his side, he's still in the World Tournament. He's there, and there are tons of people like Kenta, who couldn't go because there were no more spots on the team. Jinga is carrying the hopes of Japan, and his ideals win over Deshayan in the end, which changes his outlook on how he views competition, and he vows not to give up on the Bailin Fist even though he failed to win in the first round. It's good stuff, and even though the series states once a team is eliminated they are done, that isn't quite the case. We will be seeing Wang Huzhong again. Before we move on to the second round though, we end up meeting one of the main antagonists of Metal Masters. His name is Julian Konzern. Metal Masters has multiple main antagonists. Unlike in Metal Fusion where the final boss was Ryuga and we knew that he was the final boss through almost all of Metal Fusion, in Metal Masters we switch between many main antagonists. However, some of those characters are more important than others, and Julian is one of the most important ones. He is a looming threat throughout almost the entirety of Block A because, well, we know that the cast will eventually have to fight him and his team. So introducing him early on is a really smart move in my opinion. For now though, we don't really know a lot about the guy other than the fact that he is strong and his Bey spins both clockwise and counterclockwise. Ooh, how mysterious and scary. Oh my goodness. Anyways, the second round is against the Russian team, Team Lavushka, and if I'm being honest, this round is basically filler. Hell, the entire team isn't even present. And by entire team, I mean Gangan Galaxy. because Masamune gets separated from the team because he follows a freaking hamburger trail onto another train. No, I am not kidding. And the Russian team steals the main cast's information so that they can cheat and prepare for Gang Galaxy's abilities ahead of time. And even though I've been pretty negative about this so far, while the second round doesn't really affect the narrative in any kind of significant way, it is still a pretty interesting round because of the battles. The Russian team, somehow, I don't know, they are insanely fast workers, I guess. They managed to create stadiums to counter the abilities of Gang Galaxy all in one day, so okay. Regardless, the battles are actually pretty cool because the cast can't rely on their best tools here. This means that the characters have to actually use strategy and think outside the box to win, which doesn't really happen a lot in Beyblade if I'm being completely honest, so it's cool, I like it. The first battle is Jinga vs Nooguma, and they battle in a giant cage, so Pegasus can't use its special move and is forced to battle against Nooguma's bae, Urso, on the ground, which has an advantage over Pegasus in. Jinga wins by using Urso's own power to break out of the cage and claim victory, so there we go. The second round is between Yu, who Tsubasa allowed to battle in this round, versus Alexei, the Russian team leader. The gimmick this time around is that the stadium cancels out Yu's special moves and allows Alexei's bae Welp to float in the air, which would mean that it could outlast Libra. This is Yu's defining battle in Metal Masters. It's also the only real important battle that he gets to win. I think the series treats Yu the absolute worst out of the entire cast, but I will absolutely talk about that later. We also find out that the Russian team is cheating so they can revive their dreams of going to space, even though they are literal children, but you know, whatever. Yu wins the battle by smashing up the stadium and knocking out Wolf when it becomes vulnerable. While this is happening, Masamune defeats the Saturday morning cartoon villain who has controlled the cheating in the first place, and they have this good moment where the Russian team still gets to keep their dreams even though they lost. And the freaking evil scientist guy gets arrested off screen. Yay! And he's gonna pay for his crimes. Yay! We then take a bit of a break before the third round to focus on other stuff. We end up meeting two new characters, Sophie and Wales, who we find out belong to the same team as Julian. They belong to the EU team, Team Excalibur, with Julian being its leader.
Oh, I get it.
You two are representing England. I'm Wales of the Blue Grand Cetus.
Representing France, I'm Sophie of the White Grand Cetus.
And the team leader representing Italy, I'm Julian Concern. Together, we make up the European Union. We are Team Excalibur.
Yeah, for some reason the EU countries don't have their own teams. They instead just have the best of all their countries on the same team. This just is not fair. What the hell? Why does every other team not get to freaking team up with other countries and just have their best bladers end up on a freaking united team together? That's not fair. But this is what I mean when I say the WBBA doesn't really have any actual rules about the World Tournament. Like, it really should just be these guys on separate teams, but whatever, you know, whatever works, I guess. I'm not gonna question it. It's Beyblade, you know? Anyways, the cast ends up crashing their little festival thing going on, which leads to them ending up in a 3v3 team battle between the two teams, which doesn't really go too well for our main characters. Gang Galaxy has no coordination, and even though Masamune's striker is able to pierce through Sophie and Wales' joint special move, they still end up losing in the end. So, there you go. We then meet Wang Huzhong again, who we find out wasn't kicked from the tournament in fact, so that thing earlier about if you lose you're completely done was totally false and a lie, but I guess that's just kind of consistent with Japan not really knowing any of the rules going forward. Knowing any of the rules of the tournament itself, even though they're kind of like the main originators of Beyblade, but you know, whatever the hell. Wang Huzhong is participating in the wildcard tournament, which essentially just is the losers side of things, where the losers of the first two rounds get to participate in order to get a shot at the tournament again, and the winner will get to rejoin. They help our main team learn how to properly work together and kind of come together as a unit, so that's all nice, well and good. Heck yeah. The cast then learns about where Kiyoya has been this entire time. Kiyoya has joined the tournament with a different team, just as he declared at the beginning of the series, and we get to see a flashback of how Kiyoya got to that point. He went to Rock City and participated in the qualifier tournament for the country of Savannah, which isn't even a country, but whatever, you know. He gets two cool teammates named Nile and Demore, and they form Team Wildfang. I will be talking more about them in a bit. Back in the present, we get to see Team Wildfang battle against the Indian team. Also, Ben K has joined the team as a sub-member under the alias of Masked Bull, so freaking Chad-like behavior there. Nile wrecks his opponent in the first battle, and Kiyoya shows off his new special move to demonstrate that he is way stronger than he was at the beginning of the series. So the third round is going to be between Gang and Galaxy and Team Wildfang, and it is absolutely the best round in the entirety of the tournament. After the main cast reunites with Kenta, we get a good character moment with Masamune where he declares that he wants to battle Kiyoya because since Kiyoya is the team leader, then he should battle him. But he gets pushback from every character because of course he does. He has no idea of the history between Jinga and Kiyoya, and he feels entitled to battle Kiyoya because he is the #1 blader, you know? And it's kind of interesting to see people remind him of where he stands in all of this. He doesn't have the history that Jinga and Kiyoya have. This is a really important moment because it leads to the scene afterwards where Masamune recklessly declares that he will defeat Nile in the first battle because Jinga and Kiyoya are the focus of everyone's attention. Once again, we are getting to see one of Masamune's main flaws that he has kind of had through the first half of Metal Masters. He sees himself as #1, and he kind of expects everyone else to as well. What this means is that he wants the attention that comes with being #1 as well. He does not like being outdone by anyone, especially Jinga. And he's essentially been fighting a one-sided battle against Jinga to show that he is the best, and to gain everyone's attention. He really is full of himself at this point in the series. And then, in comes Nile.
Masamune Kadoya, huh? Interesting. Go ahead and try to get me to use my full strength.
Nile is absolutely one of the best new characters introduced to Metal Masters. He is the complete antithesis of Masamune in every way. Unlike Masamune, Nile is calm and collected. He doesn't really shout or brag about his abilities. He's confident but not arrogant, and he doesn't mind being second to Kiyoya. He gladly goes to battle first in the first 2 rounds and lets Kiyoya battle in the second battle of both rounds, letting him have the unintentional spotlight. He represents everything Masamune is not, and he is a total reality check for Masamune. The first battle of the third round is the aforementioned Masamune vs. Nile. It's probably my favorite battle in all of Metal Masters, and no, I'm not kidding, it's seriously that good. Masamune gets humbled hard in this battle. This is the true turning point for his character. To his credit, he actually does really well in the first half of the battle. Nile's Bay Harusius is strong, but Striker is able to match it and even overpower it. In fact, Masamune continues to have the advantage when Nile tries to have Harusius use its little Vulcan air cannon attack, and Striker is able to dodge every single blast and continue on the offensive. However, everything changes when Nile activates Harusius' true power. It isn't even close. None of Striker's speed or power matters, because when Striker attacks Harusius, it not only successfully defends against the attack, but it also overpowers Striker and sends it flying every time Masamune tries to have it attack. Then Nile switches from defense to offense, and Masamune proceeds to get even more wrecked than he was before. Masamune is completely overwhelmed. We have never seen Masamune back so far into a corner before. Even in the battles where Masamune lost, he was still never completely outclassed. In all of his losses to Jinga, he was always getting better and better and even beat him in the end. In his first battle against Chaoshin, he almost won. He had Chaoshin on the ropes, and if not for the Great Wall exploding, knocking out Striker, he potentially could have won. Deshain himself even said that if the battle had been in an official stadium, things would have been in Masamune's favor. And even in the 3v3 against Team Excalibur, despite how poor the battle turned out, Masamune alone was able to completely pierce through Grand Decalion. In every battle, Striker was able to do what it is supposed to do. Be strong and fast. And this is the first time where none of its abilities were able to work. Even when Masamune is reinvigorated by Jinga, amping him up and reminding him of his goal to be #1, it doesn't change the outcome. Masamune puts it all on the line and has Striker use its special move, and even though Nile himself admits that Striker could defeat Harusius with its special move, it doesn't matter. Nile intercepts Striker's attack with Harusius' own special move and wins the battle with an overwhelming victory. Nile then proceeds to humble Masamune even further by reminding him that everyone in the World Tournament is trying with all their soul to win and be the best, and that Masamune was doomed to fail from the start because he foolishly declared that he was the best before the battle had even happened. It's a real slap in the face, and Masamune is distraught, but it's completely warranted. He absolutely deserves that. Before the second battle between Jinga and Kiyoya, we get to see this really vulnerable moment from Masamune where he pleads with Jinga not to lose the battle because he just does not want the run in the tournament to end like this. And in a really nice moment between the two of them, Jinga reassures Masamune that he won't lose. The second battle of Jinga vs Kiyoya is probably the most iconic battle in all of Metal Masters. It's a battle that has been in the works for a long time. The last time these two characters got a proper one-on-one was in episode 10 of Metal Fusion. They weren't able to battle in Battle Bladers because Kiyoya ended up losing to Ryuga, but now they can. It's a great battle with both of them going back and forth. Jinga even breaks through the Lion Gale Force wall. It's cool. And as the battle continues, Jinga starts a speech about friendship and stuff. And then he has Pegasus go to use the Star Booster attack. But then Kiyoya reveals that he wasn't even using his full power and uses his true Lion Gale Force wall. I said in my Metal Fusion video that Kiyoya is just insane, and well, here it is. We find out that Kiyoya went to Africa to literally train against actual tornadoes. Like, we should really be reading about his death in African news networks or something. He should really be dead by now, but this is Beyblade, so I'm not gonna question it. The battle is just getting more and more dramatic until Kiyoya decides to bust out his new special move, the King Lion Reverse Wind Strike, and Leon flies into the air, but then Jinga has Pegasus jump into the air because it can go higher. But then Kiyoya says that he has a massive brain, and Leon creates a mid-air tornado that it allows it to go even higher than Pegasus, and it pulls the move off successfully. And if I'm being honest here, Kiyoya really should have won here because he totally outplayed Jinga. He's outplayed Jinga twice now. But through the power of friendship, i.e. Masamune begging Jinga not to lose, and Jinga accidentally using one of Galaxy Pegasus's main abilities, he's able to resist the attack and kind of counter it. This then leads to one of the most unintentionally hilarious moments in all of Beyblade.
Showdown starts now!
And with that, the battle has ended in a draw. The third battle is between Tsubasa and Demore, but before the battle starts, Benkei comes out and suggests a tag battle 2v2 just on Nile's advice. Yu immediately jumps at this suggestion, of course, because he really wants an opportunity to battle because he's unfortunately the sub-member, you know? And he reasons that since they don't know anything about Demore really, due to him not participating in any of the battles up until now, it's much safer for both of them to take him on since they know Benkei's Bay. They are in a much better position to focus on any abilities that Demore might have. So the battle begins, and Tsubasa starts easily taking the lead against Benkei because Eagle is just faster than Bull, and Yu battles with Demore, and Libra easily overpowers Demore's Scorpio. The reason for this is something I haven't mentioned yet. Demore's Bay is absolute trash on the physical end. He got really lucky during the qualifier tournament because of another skill that Kiyoya thought was useful, and Kiyoya and Nile did the heavy lifting instead and carried it into the world tournament. However, Demore is not completely helpless. The skill that Kiyoya thought was useful was that Demore has really good eyesight. Not in like the typical 20/20 sense, but more in the anime sense. The dude has freaking Sharingan eyes. He can see great distances and can even read the opponent's moves. Yeah, these are totally Sharingan. Come on, I mean, really? So what ends up happening is that Demore reads Eagle's moves and then directs Benkei on where to attack, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. Even when Yu uses Sonic Buster and Eagle's able to fly above it, Demore is able to play around it by having Scorpio carry Bull, and then they knock Eagle into the freaking sand trap. So it just completely backfired. Just like in his battles against Kiyoya and Chiyun, Tsubasa got completely outplayed. And not even just him this time. Every battle of this round has just had Team Wildfang completely taking the advantage over our main cast. It feels like such an uphill battle, and honestly, if it wasn't for Jinga's plot armor, Kiyoya's team realistically would have been going on to the final round. But I digress. I like the round because of its uphill nature, you know? It feels like a struggle, and I like that. But then, for the third time now, Tsubasa starts yelling in crap, and the dark edge power starts appearing. And now Tsubasa destroys the stadium and all of the other bays in the battle, leaving him the winner, and now both teams are tied for 1 win each. Because the second battle ended in a tie and both teams have 1 win, it's decided that a 4th battle will be held as a tiebreaker. It's going to be another 2v2 that will be between Jinga and Masamune against Kiyoya and Nao. But an important thing to note is that Jinga and Kiyoya's bays are pretty worn down from their bout in the second battle, so neither is going to be at full power in this battle. Anyway, so the next day comes around and the battle starts. This battle is pretty decent. It isn't as good as Masamune versus Nao or Jinga versus Kiyoya, but it does a good job at elevating Masamune as a character, because this is where we get to see his most important character growth moment. As the battle starts, Masamune wants to get his get back, but Nao has other plans. He immediately targets Pegasus and tries to knock Jinga out of the battle first, but Kiyoya interrupts him and proceeds to just essentially 1v1 with Jinga, and so the battle essentially kind of splits up into 2 separate smaller battles, because Kiyoya and Masamune both just want to defeat their rivals. However, it's quickly established that Kiyoya and Jinga cannot use their full power because they're both really injured. Yeah, they just spun their metal tops too hard or something, I guess. Whatever. So this battle is more so about Masamune versus Nile. Masamune is all fired up and Striker is doing well and overpowering Harusius, just like in the first battle actually. However, things start to get dicey. Nile uses his little air cannon attack or whatever it is, but this time, Striker isn't able to dodge the attacks like it was able to do so before. Masamune's head isn't completely in the game because he really just wants to defeat Nile, which makes sense. Although a weird comparison, have you ever played a game like Smash Bros. And you get really riled up because a dude is just stunting on you or is just using really cheesy strats, so you get a bit frustrated and end up doing everything in your power to just hit the guy with an aggressive brute force offensive, but in doing so accidentally end up abandoning the fundamentals of the game, and this just causes him to land more hits because you become really predictable and he wins anyways? It's like that. Nao then activates Harusius' true power and the fight starts to go the same way their first battle went, with Masamune trying to attack and continuously getting sent flying instead. However, Masamune then proceeds to interrupt Jinga and Kiyoya's little bout, and admits that he needs help to win, and that he wants to make it a true team battle. That's the interesting thing about this battle. Masamune and Kiyoya never really have a proper battle in the anime, but they are essentially the main focus of this battle. They do face off in the manga. Yes, there is a manga, and yes, the anime is a very loose adaptation of the manga, but I digress. Masamune and Kiyoya contrast each other in this battle. They both want to defeat their rivals, but the winner is determined by who is able to see the bigger picture, because at the end of the day, despite the fact that the battles are generally one-on-one, the World Tournament is a team competition. When one person loses a battle, the entire team suffers the consequences. This is something Masamune is directly confronted with when he loses to Nile. He wanted to be acknowledged as number 1, but before the round started, Jinga and Kiyoya were the focus of everyone's attention, so in an attempt to not be overshadowed, he made the very rash and selfish decision to challenge Nile in the first battle without discussing at all with his teammates. He went into the battle with full confidence that he would win. However, he failed, and all of a sudden, not just him, but all of his teammates were now at risk of being eliminated from the tournament, all because of his own selfishness and cockiness. Now, could anyone other than Jinga have defeated Nao at this point in the series? No, probably not. But the point is that Masamune was really reckless and wasn't really thinking about the team. This is the reason this battle is so important in Masamune's character arc. At the beginning of the battle, Nao made the smart choice to try to knock out a weakened Pegasus in order to have an easier time going up against Masamune. But Kiyoya stopped him to 1v1 Jinga even though his Bey was extremely damaged and it was dangerous to do so, instead of doing the smart thing and knocking out Jinga early, which would have guaranteed Wild Fang's victory. That isn't to say there is anything inherently wrong with having pride and challenging someone to a battle, but there are more factors at play in the World Tournament that need to be considered. But in contrast to Kiyoya, Masamune acknowledges his limits and swallows his pride to have the best chance of winning the battle, which is to interrupt Jinga and Kiyoya's bout and have Striker push Pegasus to have them both use their special moves at the same time. I think it's interesting to note that Jinga is completely receptive to this, and unlike Kiyoya, goes along with it instead of trying to continue the 1v1 with Kiyoya. Kiyoya realizes what's happening, but it's too late, and even though he tries to hold both of them back with Leon and have Nile knock everyone out with his special move, it doesn't matter. In its last-ditch effort to buy time, Leon ends up giving in, because it was just too damaged to succeed in the first place, and Striker is able to deliver the final blow to Harusius. This is a really cathartic ending, because not only does Masamune score the winning KO, but he also follows through on a declaration he made at the beginning of the round, before the round started.
Masamune, just don't let your guard down. Your opponent is an undefeated Bey.
That's great, because it means that the first Bey to smash the undefeated record of Vulcan Harusius will be my very own Ray Striker. I'll break through with Lightning Sword Flash. I'll take the lead over Jinga in the blink of an eye.
Did you say over Jinga? Who exactly do you think you're battling, Masamune?
Look, only one thing matters. I'll show you all that I'm the #1 blader. Booyah!
Because Nile beat Masamune in the first battle, he was still technically undefeated going into the tiebreaker battle, and in the end it was Masamune's Striker that knocked out Harusius, and with that, Gang and Galaxy moves on to the final round of the A block. I will say though that I think it is a real shame how the series treats Nile after this battle though. He just doesn't really get to do anything. He gets like one battle in Metal Fury, the sequel series to Metal Masters. That isn't to say he doesn't come back into the story of Metal Masters, but he doesn't really get another proper battle, which is a real shame because he is one of my favorite characters and easily Masamune's most important rival. Regardless, we now kind of take a break to check on Tsubasa in the hospital, and he freaking freaks out and throws a chair at the window when he sees his evil reflection. Ooh. So now we get the truth of Tsubasa's dark power. So I guess in his battle with Ryuga, when he was defeated, he ended up taking in some of that dark power. And that's why he's been freaking out and having nightmares and crap. Our cast then gets a call from Wanghu Zhang. They made it through the wildcard tournament and are back in the main tournament. They are in the semifinals and are going to be battling against Team Excalibur. It's pretty obvious that they are going to lose, but they do have some decent battles in the meantime. The first battle is Chao Xin and Mei versus Sophie and Wales. It's unironically the best team battle in the entire series because both pairs are actual teams and they use legitimate teamwork and fun tactics. However, the battle does ultimately end with Chao Xin and Mei losing when Sophie and Wales use their joint special move. The second battle is between Chiyun and Team Excalibur's sub-member, Klaus, who we didn't get to meet until this point. This is his proper introduction, and this battle serves to establish just how powerful the guy is. Before the battle starts though, we get a flashback to when Chiyun met Deshayan. He wanted to quit and stuff, but Deshayan was super cool and encouraged Chiyun. It's a little nice backstory for both of these characters and gives us some nice development for both of them. Chiyun declares that he will win and goes out to battle. He then proceeds to get absolutely destroyed. Klaus's Bey is just way too strong for Chiyun. Chiyun has more technique than Klaus, but it doesn't matter because Lacerda just can't hurt Klaus's Capricorn no matter what it does. Even when Chiyun attacks, when Capricorn is vulnerable, the Bey just keeps spinning and Chiyun starts getting desperate, which causes Tsubasa, who's watching on his TV, to start freaking the hell out, man. Like, damn, dude, you aren't even present and you're still being a little drama queen. The hell. The battle ends with Klaus easily defeating Chiyun, but Deshayan assures him that it's alright and that they will keep working hard even though they lost. It's a nice moment. However, Tsubasa then runs away from the hospital. Oh, and look who it is. It's Ryuga. Cool dude, that Ryuga. Tsubasa then abandons the team and goes all the way to Italy to trespass onto Julian's property to battle him and Team Excalibur. Then, freaking Ryuga does the same thing. He just trespasses onto the scene. And you know a character is just awesome when their introduction is literally just accompanied by meteors falling down as they walk, you know? Ryuga tells Tsubasa some advice on the dark power, and then we get this setup for a potential battle between Ryuga and Julian, with Ryuga declaring that there can only be one left rotating bay in the world. But this interaction is pretty pointless because this potential plot point is never really followed through on. We do kind of get a spiritual conclusion to it in Metal Fury though, but I'll save that for when we get there. So the next day comes around and our cast arrives in Italy, but they are in a tight spot because they are missing Tsubasa. And Team Excalibur has requested for the second battle to be a team battle. Jinga then says that they have to win 2 battles in a row because of this, which is really freaking dumb. Jinga, you know this is the reason why you exists on the team, right? He's a sub-member. If something happens to a regular member, you can fill in the spot. Like, just decline the team battle. You aren't obligated to accept the request. It would be smarter to decline it anyways because Sophie and Wales have almost exclusively fought in team battles this entire time. But this is Beyblade, and our characters aren't concerned with such frivolous things like logic, and they're going to accept it regardless. Guess it's just a pride thing. The next day, our cast is heading to the stadium, but then Ryuga shows up with Tsubasa and challenges Jinga to a battle, to which Jinga accepts and basically ditches his team too. Now, of course, a battle with Ryuga probably takes priority over a battle with anyone from Team Excalibur, but now our team is in a really tight spot. Klaus is the first person up, so Masamune is kind of forced to fight him. It's not as bad as it seems, though, because when the team was discussing who would battle Klaus, the team kind of unanimously decided that Masamune would be the best option to battle Klaus, as Striker's offensive prowess could put up a proper fight, and Klaus had previously expressed interest in battling Masamune after he found out about the whole Grand Ducalion thing. So the first battle of the A block final is Masamune versus Klaus. It's a genuinely good battle. There's a ton of natural back and forth between the two of them, and it's cool to see how the characters' moves and techniques lead into the next set of interactions. Even with Klaus's Capricorn's superior defense and more destructive power, Masamune does a solid job of withstanding, intercepting, and countering Klaus's special moves, all while continuously having Striker consistently deliver precise, powerful attacks towards Capricorn. There is an interesting concept that the battle constantly references, and that is the concept of the axe versus the lance. Which is more powerful? Overwhelming destructive power that wipes out everything in its path, or powerful precise strikes where all the power is concentrated onto a single point to deliver the maximum amount of damage with each strike. Although a bit of an out of left field comparison, if you are familiar with Naruto, the Rasengan and the Chidori are like the perfect embodiment of this concept. Overwhelming destructive power versus precise deadly power. It's cool. Ultimately though, the question of which is better doesn't really matter, as we will see, because the main focus of the battle is the pride of both of them. Masamune and Klaus are on equal footing, and neither wants to lose. At the climax of the fight, both characters use their special moves, and Masamune actually wins the clash. And the battle seems to be over, but Capricorn barely hangs on, and Klaus powers up again. The battle isn't decided by who is stronger, it's decided by who wants it more. He simply has more grit, and has prepared himself to battle in that condition. Even though Masamune lost though, it's okay because he did give it his all here. He wasn't arrogant and never underestimated Klaus, and even though he feels down because he really kinda did need to win here, he's also able to accept the defeat once Klaus acknowledges Masamune and gives him a thumbs up before he passes out. Yes, he passes out because of a Beyblade. But again, it's Beyblade, so we move on. The next battle is against the Cetus pair. And our main cast is still in a bad position because not only do they have to win 2 in a row, they still only have Masamune, who just finished the battle with Klaus, and Yu. But then Tsubasa decides that he will battle instead, and he goes down with Yu in tow. The second battle is Tsubasa and Yu versus Sophie and Wales. The battle starts and Tsubasa and Yu are trying to damage the pair, failing. They don't even bother to try attacking together or anything. Tsubasa starts complaining and doing his dark edge thing. Yu tries to snap him out of it, and the Cetus pair use their joint special move. Tsubasa then goes into his Bleach inner world and gets a flashback of when he was a kid and some other kids cheated, and his edge self tries to tell him to accept the dark power because the world doesn't fight fair. Tsubasa declares that even in spite of that, he will continue fighting in his own way, and then he overcomes the dark power and gets a new special move and wins the match for Gang Gang Galaxy. Yay! Anyways, now both teams have one win each, which just leaves Jinga. Jinga's been battling Ryuga because Ryuga is letting Jinga know about Pegasus's true power, and he ultimately stops the battle early so Jinga can go and battle Julian. The third battle is Jinga's battle against Julian, and this is a bout that has been built up for quite a bit now, as Julian is one of the main antagonists of Metal Masters, and we are going to finally see the payoff here. The battle starts with Julian using reverse rotation since his Bay Gravity Destroyer can spin both clockwise and counterclockwise. However, since Jinga was just battling Ryuga, he got some practice reminders and does pretty well battling against them. However, Julian then starts getting the lead when he starts actually trying. Oh my god, what a gamer. And then he activates his Bay's Eyes of Medusa. Woo! Essentially, the Eyes of Medusa are just the Bay controlling gravity and pushing down on the enemy, which is so freaking absurd, but it is just Beyblade, you know, we all know this, we don't question it. Although Tsubasa says, how is any of this possible? What are you talking about, Tsubasa? Like, you're acting like this is out of the norm for Beyblade, like what? Jinga yells a lot, and Pegasus is able to escape because it uses its special power. Basically, Pegasus' special rubber performance tip, again with the rubber, allows Pegasus to generate spin strength, and apparently the tip is unique to Galaxy Pegasus, so no other Bay has it. Now, to be fair, the Bay was just recovered, so I can understand that. However, if this tip is so freaking amazing, then why did no one after this point ever try to recreate it? It's just made of rubber, and no one uses the tip, so what the hell? Anyways, Jinga gets his mojo back and tries his new special move before Julian overpowers him. And then Jinga decides to combine the special move with Pegasus' special tip, and this allows him to use a new special move, which wins the battle and leaves Jinga the winner, which means that Gang Gang Galaxy wins the A block. Hooray! This is a really big deal, but it doesn't really matter in the long run because both finalist teams of both blocks still participate in the semifinals of the World Tournament. In the North America and South America B block, they also had a winner, you know, they also had a semifinal. So essentially, the winners of the A block and B block will fight the losers of the opposite block. So Gang Gang Galaxy's next opponent is the Brazilian team, Team Garcia. When our cast gets to Brazil, they are warned by a taxi driver not to go exploring. He is telling them not to go to the hood because they would get mugged, essentially. Okay. In their hotel, they try to watch footage of the B block final, and the footage is really bad. I don't really know why, though. I mentioned before that the information gathering aspect of the story would start falling apart by the end, and here we are. Brazil has working cameras, you know. And even then, none of these team battles were posted on the internet? It doesn't make any sense since they really shouldn't be struggling to find information on them. Regardless, they end up seeing that one of Masamune's friends is on the American team, and Masamune's confused by this because supposedly he was weak. Yu's all bummed out by the fact that he won't get to battle this time around and goes into town and ends up agreeing to a street battle with this kid, Enzo. It's just kind of a race, but what ends up happening is that he gets ambushed by the other members of Team Garcia. Enzo was their sub-member, and our cast didn't really know he existed. Again, they really should have known this information considering it wasn't a secret to the other Brazilians themselves, but whatever. Yu's Bay gets very damaged when the team leader Argo sneak attacks him and he gets all hurt. Now, if he was smart, he would have just recollected his Bay the moment the other two team members jumped in, because it's clearly cheating and not in the faith of the race, but he doesn't and he gets hurt. Now, it doesn't take a genius to see what the correct course of action is here. They should immediately report this to the WBBA and have the Brazilian team disqualified. But of course, they're not going to do that because they're a bunch of dumbasses and their pride is more important than anything else. They need to settle this in an official stadium. This is so stupid it hurts. Madoka's the only one with any kind of intelligence on the team because she says that they should just be reported. But they go to battle the next day anyways, so whatever. It gets even worse because the next day when the semifinal starts, Team Garcia then requests a battle using their special rule set. It's a knockout battle, where every team member will participate, and when one member gets knocked out, the next member has to immediately switch in, and it just continues until one team has no more members. Once again, our cast chooses to shoot themselves in the foot because they go along with it. Why is this allowed? Why is there no official rule set for this damn tournament? The rules are so malleable and they make no sense. Besides, our cast has absolutely no reason to accept these terms. They want to get revenge by beating them under their rules, but I think the ultimate punishment would be to just disqualify them. If they want to abandon sportsmanship, then they can be abandoned from the sport. Ultimate slap in the face. It's what they deserve. Anyways, so the first battle is between Yu and Enzo, and it's nothing really special. Yu does alright at first, but then Enzo starts getting the upper hand, and Enzo starts playing the victim card because they are poor and live in Brazil, and Beyblade is the only way for them to escape. And while I do sympathize, at the end of the day, they're a bunch of assholes who assaulted a kid for this goal and then call them privileged after the crap they just pulled, which makes me want to punch them in the face. Regardless, Enzo uses his special move and Yu tries to counter with Inferno Blast, but Libra ends up breaking in the process and becomes defeated because it was just too damaged to pull the move off in the first place. He was even warned about this beforehand. Masamune jumps in and two-shots Enzo, and then Selene, the next member, goes in. This is the worst battle in all the Metal Masters. Masamune is a total freaking dumbass here. Selene does the whole, "What is that?" It points to something else, and Masamune falls for it multiple times and isn't able to figure out why Striker is getting damaged until he is straight up told by his freaking teammates. Then, when she does it one more time, Masamune proceeds to close his eyes, and then Selene defeats him because he had his eyes closed and lost track of her bay. What the hell? What a freaking joke, dude. The series tries to justify this by saying that Masamune didn't have any experience fighting opponents like Selene, but that is so freaking stupid. I'm not saying that Masamune is the sharpest tool in the shed, but it's clear that he isn't totally stupid. He was the character who saw through Deshine's attempt to bait Jinga, which proves that he isn't totally helpless. He has some form of people skills, you know? This is Masamune's only defeat that I think is genuinely poorly written, because he just loses all common sense here for no reason. And I have to be real, I don't really know what is going on. Why is the writing so freaking bad this round, you know? It's just been nothing but contrivance after contrivance to make this round play out the way it has so far. Stupid moment after stupid moment. First, our cast can't find any information about the other team because the footage from the B Block final looks like crap, despite the fact that Brazil should have working cameras and they have access to the internet. And if they couldn't check the final battle footage, they should have tried to find some of their earlier battles in the B Block, but never bothered to try or even consider this. Then when they ambush and assault you, our cast chooses not to report them. And then they accept Team Garcia's rule set even though they have no reason to, and they don't even know all the intricacies of the rule set itself. Especially after they literally assaulted their teammate the day before. And then Masamune suddenly loses all of his brain cells when fighting against Selene, just so the story can keep our main cast in a disadvantageous position, to have an increase in tension and urgency. Oh, what the hell, man? Now it's Jinga's turn, and you would expect him to have an easy time, but nope. Selene just avoids him the entire time because of the rules of the knockout battle. Jinga can't go to the next person until he defeats his current opponent. So he can't advance until he defeats Selene, but Selene just keeps running away. So again, I have to stress, why did you accept this rule set again? This goes on and Pegasus is losing its spin strength over time, but then when Jinga's about to defeat her, Selene forfeits. She was undefeated because she never let anyone else KO her base, she just kind of forfeited it each time. Ooh, how funny and technical, you know. The next opponent is Ian. He ends up using a part of the stadium for a thing he calls Cyclone Time. Essentially, a bay goes in the circle at the right time, and the thing starts to spin, and this allows the bay to do a cyclone attack. Here's the kicker though. Only really Ian knows the timing on it. However, after Pegasus survives an absurd amount of attacks from Ian's Bay, Hercules, seriously, it's freaking crazy how many big attacks Pegasus lasts through, especially since it went into this battle weakened due to Selene. Jinga is able to learn the secret to defeating the Cyclone attack, and is able to defeat Ian though. However, just as when Jinga is celebrating, Pegasus gets sent flying by Argo, the team leader who landed a sneak attack, and with that, the final battle is going to be between Argo and Tsubasa. This is a good battle. Argo's Bay Gill is very powerful and is able to unrelentingly deliver powerful attacks to Eagle, and this leaves Tsubasa with very little room to breathe, as Argo also uses the stadium debris to attack as well. Even when Tsubasa is able to escape from the barrage and have Eagle attack from above, it ends up backfiring since Gill's energy ring is able to counter those types of attacks. Ultimately though, Eagle is able to survive and maneuver through the attacks, and Tsubasa is able to identify and target the weakness of Ray-Gill, which is its spin track, and land Eagle's Shining Tornado Buster! Yay! That's not all to this battle though. It's also the true conclusion of the Dark Tsubasa subplot. And now I feel I can go more in depth with this plot point now that we have hit all the main story beats.
Ah! I will win! I will! I will! No matter what it costs me, I will win! What? What is this? Win! I will win! Do not cross me!
Growing up, I was really invested in this subplot. It was my first ever exposure to the inner demon trope within anime, and it was very engaging to me. Watching this now though, it hasn't really aged as well. It isn't terrible or anything, it just doesn't really work as well as I remember it. Ryuga explained that the dark power is essentially the manifestation of the negative emotions that have been built up by the greed and evil natures of people who have used it over the years. And so when someone has the dark power, it essentially feeds on their psyche until it consumes them or they overcome it, while negatively manifesting their desires and emotions. That's the idea with this battle. It's this idea of similar emotions and desires manifesting themselves in positive or negative ways. Tsubasa and Argo are parallels of each other, where Argo and his family do whatever it takes to win, even using each other and cheating, and if Tsubasa wanted to do whatever it took to win, then he could have given into the dark power and ended up like Argo. But he didn't. He was able to continue on without losing himself. It's a nice conclusion to the subplot, but I don't think it was executed as well as it could have been, because the foundation of the subplot is a bit rough. The main criticism I have is that I don't think the payoff to this plot point is able to justify the amount of time that is spent on it in the first place. Tsubasa himself doesn't really undergo any kind of real character arc. The dark power of Tsubasa's desire to win manifested in a negative way. However, every character wants to win. This isn't a thing that is unique to Tsubasa, and I do understand that that's kind of the point. The idea is that the dark power can affect literally anyone because everyone has strong emotions and like desires, you know? I think they chose Tsubasa specifically because of the stark contrast between his usual personality and the dark power version of himself. But this large desire to win was never really a part of Tsubasa's initial characterization. In fact, he was one of the strongest characters in the cast of Metal Fusion, only really being behind Jinga, Ryuga, and Kyoya. So I don't really think that the story trying to show this idea of wants and desires manifesting themselves in positive or negative ways is able to really come across well here. I only complain about this because the series has demonstrated this idea multiple times and better in two cases through Ryuga and Masamune. Again, every character has the desire to win, but these desires are a core part of both of their character arcs. Ryuga has a desire to be the strongest. He already was one of the strongest. However, he was gaining the strength through the dark power, and in the end, the power completely corrupted him. We got to see the repercussions of this pursuit, and we got to see him undergo a character arc after he was saved by Jinga, where he decided to build himself back up from the ground and make the power his own through his own strength. It's basically the same story as Tsubasa, except that the desire to be strong is a core part of Ryuga's character, and we get to see the consequences these actions had on him, as he completely loses himself. Yeah, we kind of get consequences with Tsubasa. He destroys a stadium and hurts some people, but the series moves past this so freaking quickly rather than focusing on the effect that his rampage has on the people around him and himself. Then there is Masamune, who's in the same boat as Ryuga, where his stated goal is to be number 1. With Masamune, we also see the negatives of this desire to win, and some negative consequences, just in a different way, as he builds himself up in his head, only to get hit by the cold, uncaring reality of things as he gets completely humbled. But both characters are able to overcome these low points in their character arcs and are able to come out as improved individuals, and for me that's the core of all this. Tsubasa doesn't really change as a character much. He's no different from how he was characterized in Metal Fusion. I think the Dark Power would have worked better if it was given to a character who maybe lost a lot, and maybe in their desperation to win they would rely more and more on the power until they hurt the people they care about or themselves, and then they would try to overcome it after seeing the consequences of their actions. It doesn't have to be that, but you kind of get what I'm saying. The Dark Tsubasa subplot isn't terrible or anything, it just didn't age as well for me, and it didn't live up to the potential I think it had. Anyways, one more thing about Tsubasa vs. Argo before moving on. It's stated that all the battles and all the sibling battles lead to Argo's battle. Enzo lured you away, and they ambushed him, crippling Libra in the process. Selene was made to constantly run away and weaken Pegasus. Then Ion was allowed to come in and with a much more tricky fighting style to do as much damage as possible, all in order to weaken the enemy as much as possible for Argo to come in and clean up with his power. There's a major problem here though. All you have to do is think about it for a few seconds. What would have happened if you hadn't left the hotel? Team Garcia would have been screwed, because there is no way either Enzo or Selene could have defeated you. No way in hell. The series treats this like some kind of genius cheating tactic, when in reality they were just really lucky that you decided to leave. Ugh. But that's enough of this round, because we are now approaching the climax of Metal Masters, and that is the United States. We are in America, baby! Specifically New York, and this is Masamune's home. We kinda got a hint about it when Masamune knew who Zio was on the American team. They go to visit Masamune's old gym, and we get a ton of development for Masamune. We learn about how he came to Japan specifically to defeat Jinga, but coincidentally, the World Tournament was going on, so he kinda just got swept up in all the excitement and joined Gang Gang Galaxy. By the way, he left and didn't tell anyone that he was doing this. No note, no nothing. He just kinda decided to do it and went for it, which is a massive jerk move on his part. We then get to properly meet Zio. He lets Masamune know which hospital his sick friend Toby has been located to, since earlier in the episode Masamune tries to go see him but couldn't find him. Zio's joined a blader training organization called HD Academy, and he's gotten stronger, and he has a new Bay too. His Bay has a big spin track, and he and Masamune then engage in a little bout. Striker can't hit the spin track, but then Masamune figures out how to damage it, and then they decide to suspend their match until the main tournament. However, Zio was actually really mad at Masamune, and he won't forgive him. We then also get to meet Toby. He's just a good guy, and we get to see a flashback on how Masamune met Zio and Toby, and how the three of them decided to become number 1 together. It's really nice because it recontextualizes a lot of Masamune's big moments in the story. Like him losing to Nile was a big deal, but with this added context, it makes the loss to Nile and the fallout from that as he pleads with Jinga not to lose hit much harder in my opinion. I do think it's really interesting how the story handles Masamune's development. The story fleshes out Masamune's character and has him undergo a massive character arc, and only after he has completed most of that arc and he has been decently fleshed out do we really get to see his backstory and personal relationships. It's cool because by this point the audience can already be really invested into Masamune. However, this is a double-edged sword, because for some fans, they weren't really able to get invested into Masamune until the story kind of reached America. This is an issue because if you don't like Masamune's characterization or character arc, it leads to a more negative experience with the character. Although a weird comparison, in Finding Nemo, Marlin's backstory is presented to the audience at the beginning of the movie to explain why Marlin is so protective of Nemo. However, in some test screenings, the backstory was shown towards the middle of the film, and those audiences didn't really like Marlin because they had spent most of the movie thinking he was just kind of an asshole. Just having a flashback or backstory isn't enough, it's how it's integrated into the story that matters. This is where Masamune's backstory can be a bit of a double-edged sword. It kind of hinges on how much you enjoy the character. For a person like me who was already invested in Masamune as a character, the flashback and story surrounding the US portion of Metal Masters is pretty awesome and added a lot to Masamune. However, if you weren't a fan of Masamune before this point, it's a different story. I know for a portion of people who weren't really engaged in Masamune's character, actually getting to explore his personal relationships and the conflict born from them was able to win people over to Masamune's side and get them into the character, but I'm sure there's a large contingent of fans who didn't like Masamune, and his story didn't change any of that. I sometimes wonder what the reception to the character would have looked like if his past was explored earlier in the story, or even towards the beginning of the story. Anyways, back to the main plot. I neglected to mention it because it wasn't relevant until now, but HD Academy has been following Ryuga around and harassing him to come into the academy to show his stuff. After being followed a bunch, he accepts, likely on the promise that he would get to fight someone strong. We also learned some other things about HD Academy. They are using a thing called the arrangement that makes people stronger, although I don't really know how putting your physical body in a pod would make you stronger in Beyblade, but whatever. We see a dude in one of the pods, and he's named Damien. Dr. Ziggurat, this smart glasses guy with the weird rabbit creature, needs data on a left-rotating bay, and so he has Zio go up against Ryuga. Zio's bay Bixis is a bay that is specifically tailor-made to counter attack type bays, and this has the ability to control the opponent's movements. Although Ryuga doesn't really struggle here though. It is mentioned that Zio chose not to undergo an arrangement because he wanted to win this battle with his own power, so Ryuga had an easier time winning than he would have had otherwise. He still would have won pretty easily, I think though. Zio also says that he won't forgive Jinga or Ryuga because Masamune was inspired to go to Japan because he watched their final battle during Battle Bladers and wanted to battle them. So he says that they stole Masamune, which is some real mental gymnastics on Zio's part. But moving on. Ryuga wants to battle Jack, the guy who brought him here, but Jack says his bay isn't completed. Ziggurat over here, his whole thing is that he wants to bring out the true strength of bays, and he wants to do it to take over the world or some crap. Apparently HD Academy is connected to the Dark Nebula organization, because they were watching Ryuga and saw the Dark Power end in failure. And you can totally tell that the HD Academy is connected to Dark Nebula, because just like with the Dark Nebula, I have absolutely no clue how they got any of the funding for their giant facility. It makes no sense to me. Ryuga gets really mad that he's being treated as a test subject, so he breaks out of the facility. But then, Zio undergoes an arrangement and is sent to hunt down and bring back Ryuga. Zio then starts battling against Masamune and Jinga, and starts stunting on both of them. Ryuga warns Jinga about the HD Academy, too, along with this. While this is going on, Tsubasa and Yu get their bays almost completely fixed from the semi-final battle against Team Garcia. They end up getting ambushed by Damien, who puts them into the freaking hospital. God damn, they are straight up comatose. This is now the second time that this has happened, and they don't immediately have the American team disqualified. Let's not ignore this, by the way. They need to be freaking arrested and prosecuted. You are not putting other people into freaking comas and just continuing to live a normal life. What the hell, okay? Anyways, so Masamune is trying to find and talk to Zio about this and goes to the stadium where the other semi-final battle is going to take place. It's going to be between Team Excalibur and the American team, Team Starbreaker. They get to see Team Excalibur before they go out to battle, and they say they will win because they have been training like crazy. But if you remember what happened with Wanghu Zhang, then you probably already know what's about to go down. But like I said before, the American team should be disqualified here, so it really should be Team Excalibur that just automatically wins the battle, but moving on. When the team gets out there, they find that only 2 members of Team Starbreaker are there, just Jack and Damien, so that puts them at kind of a disadvantage. The first battle is between Klaus and Jack. Now, before the battle, we see that Jack is given his finally completed bay. He couldn't battle Ryuga earlier because his bay wasn't completed, but this just begs the question. How has Jack been participating in the tournament before this point? Are you seriously implying to me that he didn't have a bay to use before this point? The writing feels a bit weird in the latter half of the series. Team Starbreaker feels like a completely separate entity that didn't exist until this point in the story, rather than an actual part of a moving, living world. The same thing applies to Team Garcia, and that's just kind of a problem that the second half of Metal Master has in general when they get to America. It's a criticism that I have with the second half of Metal Masters because the plot kind of starts losing focus here due to the fact that we are introducing this whole separate behind the scenes conspiracy plot thread that, while common in tournament arcs, I would argue actually drags the story down a bit. And we will be addressing this going further. So the battle starts, and right off the bat, things aren't good for Klaus. Jack's Bay Befall is basically the perfect counter to Capricorn. It can take all of Capricorn's attacks and recover just fine because it specializes in taking on big impacts and not losing an ounce of stamina. Also, Befall specializes in weakening the opponent over time with its little air cutter attack and its little plastic blades. So none of Capricorn's power or defense is useful at all, and so Jack's victory is basically guaranteed. The battle after that is Julian versus Damien, and oh boy, it goes terribly for Julian. Right from the get-go, Damien proposes a certain rule set. He says that they will battle in 2 matches, one with Julian using right rotation and one with Julian using left rotation. And if Julian can beat him even once, then Damien will call Destroyer the strongest Bay and by proxy concede the match. Julian accepts. So now, let's talk about Damien for a sec.
Who is this guy anyway? Oh, now. You're Tsubasa and you of Team Gangan Galaxy, if I'm not mistaken.
Excuse me, but we're in the middle of a Bay test, so stay out of the way, why don't ya?
You mentioned Ryuga. Who are you, huh? I am from Team Starbreaker. I am Damien.
Starbreaker? The American team?
You know, I guess you guys will do. Help me out with my test too, won't ya? It's just been completed. This is Hades Kerbex. What now?
What was that thing?
Isn't that where Tsubasa and the others are?
That's Hades Kerbex. Damien, so he's here already.
Damien is the leader of Team Starbreaker, and even though we have previously seen him before, this is his true and proper introduction into the story. And boy does he make an impactful first impression. For half of the story, Julian has essentially been the main antagonist. He was introduced early in the story and we knew our cast was going to have to battle him, and they did. But Damien's existence puts all of that to shame. He is so suddenly introduced into the story and he completely shuts down Julian with an insane amount of power, just to keep up the pressure on the cast and the audience. He functions a bit like Reiji in Metal Fusion in the sense that he is a sudden, powerful main antagonist that Jingo will battle before the true final battle. That's right, the true final battle. More on this later. Things were already really bad and dire with Tsubasa and Yu being taken out, but things just escalated to a whole new level with this battle. None of Julian's techniques matter at all. Damien's Bay, Kerbex, just powers through all of it, and Destroyer is barely able to hold out. This is a big moment in Julian's character arc. He always viewed victory as a must because he is a Kanzern. However, when he lost to Jinga, all his pride came crashing down to earth. He then attempts to rebuild himself back up, but encounters Damien, who proceeds to humble him even more and tells him that his pursuit is essentially worthless. Sophie and Wales interfere in the battle, which gets the team disqualified, but that doesn't matter because they aren't able to win anyways. Damien just one-shots all of them with his special move. Like, holy cow, dude. Damien is pretty freaking strong.
I failed again!
You're weak. Now you understand that? Admit it.
Admit it?
That's right. Say it loud and clear. You are weak.
I am...
I am what?
I am... weak!
The next day, the cast is told that they are allowed a temporary replacement member. However, the rule is that the replacement member can't be someone who participated in the World Tournament or any of the qualifier tournaments, which is such a dumb, arbitrary rule that makes absolutely no sense. Like, I can understand not letting the replacement member be someone who has participated on another team in the World Tournament, but why the qualifiers too? Like, realistically, Kenta would have been the replacement member. He got 6th after Benkei, but Benkei participated in the tournament, so next up would be Kenta. He kinda got screwed over here, gonna be real. However, our cast kinda just gives up after hearing this, and Jinga and Masamune already decided that they would just win 2 in a row. And in a repeating pattern that we see all the time now, they have decided to shoot themselves in the foot. So now it's time for the long-awaited final of the World Tournament. All the series has been building up to this. Jinga says that if Zio is up to battle, then he will battle him, because Jinga is concerned that Masamune will let his emotions get in the way and he will hesitate. Masamune refutes that Zio is his rival, so he has to be the one to battle him and work things out since bladers communicate through battle. The first battle of the final is Masamune versus Zio. The battle itself isn't too interesting, rather it's the character side that is emphasized. Zio's all salty that Masamune abandoned him and Toby, because apparently when Masamune left, Toby got worse and he tried to call Masamune, but he gave up when he saw Masamune get onto the Japanese team, and rather than trying to persist and maybe trying to get any form of dialogue with him, he just gives up and chooses to resent him. Okay. Ziggurat came in and said that he would take Toby to his state-of-the-art medical facility if Zio joined HD Academy. So that's how he got to this point. He then starts calling Tsubasa and Yu weak because they got hurt, and Masamune kind of vows to beat him since he is too far gone. Most of the battle is just Zio using his special move, Destiny Needle, which essentially allows Bixis to control Striker's movements with magnetism. This goes on until Madoka uses her laptop to see that Bixis' weakness is the top of the bay, where its magnetism doesn't reach. And I just have to say, like, this is cheating, right? Like, why doesn't everyone have this overpowered laptop that just lets people analyze other Bay's abilities like this? And then they can just shout the solution to their teammates. I don't know. Of course, Masamune gets the upper hand with this knowledge. Earlier, Ziggurat told Zio that if he lost, then Toby's medical treatment would get cut off, which I don't know the logistics of, but that sounds illegal, but none of what Ziggurat is doing is legal, so I guess it works out. In the middle of the battle, Zio starts activating the arrangement, and he starts powering up mid-battle. Masamune goes to finish Zio off with his special move, but just as Masamune is about to win, Zio yells that if he loses, Toby will die, which causes Masamune to hesitate and cancel a special move, which leads to Zio defeating Masamune. Yikes. All in all, it really sucks that Masamune lost this battle because it is the final round at the end of the day, and Zio was like his most personal rival. This is even worse since Masamune did the exact thing that Jinga was worried he'd do. He hesitated at the most critical juncture in this battle, and he lost because of that. But I will say that he would have lost anyways if Madoka hadn't yelled about Bixis' weakness to Masamune, so this would have ended with Zio's win regardless. I guess Masamune got his arm real strained after being defeated because he has it in a freaking cast. Okay, series. Really? This loss strained his arm that badly, huh? Well, characters pass out from Bay battles all the time, so it isn't that out of the ordinary. Since Masamune can't grip his launcher, oh my god, that means that Jinga will have to battle twice in a row and win both in order to win the tournament. However, just as Jinga's about to battle Jack, Ryuga shows up, and since he didn't compete in the World Tournament or qualifier tournaments, he can participate as the replacement member. And since Jack's Bay is completed now, and they couldn't battle earlier, this is the perfect opportunity for both of them to have their proper bout and duke it out. Now, we all know that Ryuga is going to win. I mean, come on, it's freaking Ryuga. They wouldn't bring him back to lose. The battle tries to act like Ryuga's in danger or something because Jack's Bay Befall has this air cutter attack that can damage El Drago because it can't absorb the spin strength since no contact is made. They drag this out for a bit with Jack using his freaking blade attack or whatever, but the battle is decided when Ryuga gets serious and just finishes Jack off with a special move. Like, was it gonna end any other way? All in all, a very straightforward battle. Ryuga destroys a window and just kinda pieces out. Now all that's left is the final battle. But before that, our cast actually starts to learn about the whole arrangement conspiracy. And now we are here. The final battle is Jinga versus Damien. Jinga kinda gets destroyed in the early parts of this battle, but you know he starts his whole main character trying and effort speech and even uses Stormbringer again, so that's pretty cool. Then Damien uses his special moves and brings him into hell essentially. Damien reveals that he has been trained by Ziggurat since he was young to be this strong, and Jinga then says that Damien is just a victim in all of this. Because that's basically the core of this battle. Jinga doesn't want to lose to someone who barely has to try to win when everyone else is giving it their all and putting all their heart and souls into the world tournament. He won't lose to someone who doesn't work hard for their power. He does his anime yell and wins the battle, because by this point, it isn't even really a Bay battle, you know? I mean, what is even going on here? Pegasus breaks out and Jinga wins the match. Damien also passes out because he can't believe he lost. Oh. I know I don't sound that enthusiastic about this, but it's because this battle just feels off. It doesn't feel super climactic, despite the fact that it's literally the final battle of the entire World Tournament. I do like their whole clashing of ideals, but Damien himself doesn't really change as a character. His ideals are challenged, but this battle has basically no impact on him. Plus, I have to just say that at this point, I am kind of sick of watching Jinga win. This dude lost literally one time during the entire World Tournament, and it was after battling 2 separate opponents without stopping, so that loss isn't really that big a deal. And since Jinga doesn't lose, and we spend so much time on the Dark Tsubasa subplot at the midpoint of the series, take a wild guess who ends up taking the fall. Masamune! There is never a round where Jinga just straight up loses like he did in Metal Fusion, and it really bugs me. Because his story was already completed, and he isn't currently undergoing any kind of character arc, the way he remains relevant as the main character is by getting the most spotlight and wins in the story, essentially. So, Gang and Galaxy won the tournament, and Tsubasa and you weren't even able to be here to witness it. Yeah, so that's real cool. The main plot thread of Metal Masters just ends so anticlimactically, and that's because it's technically not the end. So after our main cast won the tournament, they were celebrating when Ziggurat showed up and decided to announce to the world after a bunch of analysis on the tournament. Specifically, he was looking at Pegasus and Eldrago, and he has finished developing the ultimate blader. His name is Faust. Faust is just Toby, but Ziggurat essentially overwrote his personality by messing with his brain, and by using his Bay, he was able to create an energy source called Spiral Force. Spiral Force is very powerful and is strong enough to blow up entire mountainscapes and like evaporate lakes. And he's just going to sell it to whoever wants to buy it. Which seems like a very short-sighted plan, but let's move on. Then the characters that Ziggurat has recruited start attacking the cast. We got Starbreaker, Team Garcia, and Julian, who Ziggurat has coerced into joining the team because Hades Corp has kind of bought all his family stuff or something. I don't really get it. Also, just look at all the destruction they are causing. Kids should really not be playing with these bays. They get saved by Team Wildfang, and all our characters regroup. Also, heck yeah, Niall's here, and it's really gonna be the last time we really get to see him shine in Metal Masters. They also meet up with the remaining members of Team Excalibur. They then head off to Hades City in order to stop the Spiral Force. On the way there, they get attacked by Team Garcia and a bunch of Hades guys, and I really feel like if they want to defend the city, then they should just be launching their bays like bullets, you know, just like projectiles, considering how much damage these things do. Also, can I just reiterate that this facility is a massive city in the middle of the desert? Where does any of the funding for infrastructure like this come from? Our cast fights past them, but then the city starts to freaking fly. What the hell? Jesus, Spiral Force is powerful. Can even break the laws of physics. My god. Jinga gets attacked by Argo and ends up getting saved by Tsubasa and you, who have woken up. So that's twice now that Tsubasa's defeated Argo. About half of our cast get onto the floating city, and they are breaking through freaking gigantic steel doors with these tiny metal tops. Again, these things are deadly weapons, and they should be treated like such. Hades City is the true climax of Metal Masters, where the last set of important battles will take place. And I really have to say something. How the hell did we get here? What's with this massive shift in tone and threat? It genuinely makes no sense to me. The entirety of Metal Masters before this point was focused solely on the World Tournament. It's literally the main plot of this entire season. We just suddenly transition into this literal world-ending threat out of basically nowhere, and the series just moves on from the World Tournament like it was nothing. It feels almost insulting that we spend so much time on the World Tournament only to have the climax of the story not be the tournament, but this over-the-top nonsense. And I know I previously praised Beyblade for being over the top, but it worked because it operated under the existing context of the story. This flying city comes out of nowhere. and I like the World Tournament a lot because it helped ground and focus the plot. This whole climax is kinda just really messy. Now, that isn't to say that there isn't good things in this climax, but I think it would have been better with the final round of the tournament being the true climactic finale to Metal Masters. Our cast is then confronted by Julian, who Sophie and Wales proceed to battle. Julian says they aren't friends because he lost everything, and swiftly defeats both of them before Deshayan comes out and battles Julian. This is a cool battle because we are kind of getting a what-if scenario payoff. What if either Chiyun or Chao Xin and Mei Mei had won their fights? What would have happened in a battle between Deshayan and Julian? The best part of the battle is how it acts as a true conclusion to both of these characters' story arcs. We are seeing Deshayan's growth from how he started out as he fights to prove that Julian hasn't truly lost everything because he still has his friends and he can keep rebuilding himself no matter how many times he loses, and Julian is able to realize this and does his best to battle even though he loses, and it's okay because he has his friends and this is a new fresh start to keep trying and building himself. It's like, yay! All is good and happy. The next battle is Tsubasa versus Jack. Yu ends up getting trapped in an arrangement pod that will go off soon and might hurt Yu's brain or something. This is of course a kind of what if for if Tsubasa wasn't unconscious during the final. There are all these pillars around and Jack is doing his whole arch shtick. The core character part of this fight is when Tsubasa expresses how disappointing it was when they were knocked out during the final and weren't able to experience that. And while it is cool in my opinion that they acknowledge this, I would have preferred if it wasn't done like this in the first place. Like, if you punch me in the face and you acknowledge that it hurts, it doesn't change the fact that you punched me in the face, okay? Anyways, while this is going on, Yu tries to break out of the pod. Yes, Yu does not get a final battle in Hades City. This is the pinnacle of how poorly Metal Masters treats Yu. Outside of the two qualifier battles against Masamune and Tsubasa, both of which he lost, mind you, Yu never gets a battle where he gets to use the full arsenal of his abilities, and it really sucks. The problem is that I don't think the writers were able to figure out how to make new and unique battles using Yu's Bei. Libra's abilities worked a lot better in an antagonistic role, so they were kind of stuck here. In almost every single battle, Yu's abilities backfire or don't work in some way. The only time Yu gets a battle where he is the main focus and wins is against Alexei. And again, he couldn't use any of Libra's abilities because they would just overpower most of the opponents in the series. So the story has to constantly bend itself around Libra's existing abilities because otherwise there wouldn't be any tension to any of the battles where Yu is the focus. The only times where Inferno Blast worked was during the little training battle against Wang Huzhang, when he got a sneak attack against Argo, and when he breaks out of his pod. Jeez, man. What the hell? Anyways, so Tsubasa defeats Jack. We move on. The next battle is Kiyoya versus Damien. I think this battle is better than the Jinga one, honestly, because it's one of the few battles that we get from Kiyoya, so I do relish it. Damien says that he is even stronger now, but Kiyoya is about to prove that wrong. It's great because I think it does what Jinga vs. Damien did, but better, because Kiyoya really did have to get down in the trenches in order to achieve the power he has, while Damien was given his just from being a test subject. And then Damien kind of passes out. And I have to say, just like with his battle against Jinga, this conclusion feels really incomplete. I mean, Damien's worldview has completely shattered, sure, but ultimately this is the last time we ever get to see the character, and this has never sat right with me. But then I found out about what happens in the manga. In the manga, Damien is the final antagonist. He just shares that position with Faust. And lo and behold, the climax of the World Tournament in the manga is the final battle against Damien. It's just that while that battle is going on, Ryuga is simultaneously battling against Faust. And what's this? Damien actually undergoes a character arc during the battle? Jinga saves him from just viewing himself as a tool and becomes his friend. Also, Damien took Masamune out before the round started, just like with what he did against Tsubasa and Yu in the anime. Except that in the manga, Kerbex has the same ability El Drago had, where it sucks out a person's soul whenever he defeats someone. And he sucks out all of Jinga's friends' souls. Masamune got his soul sucked out protecting Jinga. Jinga actually has a reason to battle Damien even though he's at a disadvantage, and it feels like an actual climax that builds on the tournament instead of basically invalidating it. I can make a whole video on the very loose similarities and massive differences between the manga and the anime adaptation, because they have the same characters but a completely different context. Anyways, then Jinga and Masamune make it to Faust and proceed to battle him in order to stop the Spiral Force. They keep trying, but nothing really works because Faust's Bay tempo is like the best defense type Bay and does not budge at all. Then he proceeds to control gravity and bend time and space, because this is Beyblade and the Bay is just that strong. My freaking goodness. Luckily, Ryuga comes in to save them and provides them a chance to escape by throwing Faust out of balance. Jinga and Masamune are then able to seal the deal with a Stardust Driver and a Lightning Sword Flash, attacking together. They stopped it, but because they interrupted the Spiral Force, the core that has been harnessing the power is going to self-destruct and apparently blow up the freaking planet. Again, this is a nuclear level threat. Are there no militaries in this world? What is going on here? Jinga goes to stop the core, but while he heads down, Faust goes to start spinning tempo again, because that's all he knows since his memories were wiped and his personality overridden. Masamune decides to battle him in an attempt to get his friend to remember himself. And honestly, with all the flaws of this climax, this final battle is genuinely fantastic. It's the culmination of Masamune's story and is the perfect demonstration of his growth as a character. Yeah, the battle isn't super complex, but it's the emotions that carry this battle. And a big thing I like about this battle is how Masamune reflects on what he experienced over the World Tournament. Masamune has undergone a massive character arc, and even though he has grown a lot, his core values that he learned from Toby are still instilled in him. It's awesome, and he's even able to get Faust to start remembering who he was as Toby. But then Faust uses a special move. Zio ends up jumping into the battle too. For a little added context, Zio's been in a cell this whole time because he didn't want to go along with Ziggurat's plan anymore, and he just managed to get out, and along the way he defeated Ziggurat. In the little time-space place that Faust created, they are able to get Faust to remember who he is as Toby and remember the promise to be number one that they all made together. And it's really nice, actually, in my opinion. With help from Ryuga, Jinga is able to get Pegasus to absorb the energy of the Spiral Force and fly it into space so it can release it, I guess? I don't even know at this point. Even more freaking impressive that it survived this, considering that that was apparently going to blow up the freaking planet. Not going to question the logistics or physics of any of this. That bay should not exist anymore. But all is well and good. The planet didn't blow up, and Toby doesn't have his unnamed safe for kids cancer anymore. He's cured, and he's got his personality and his memories back, so all is well and good, I guess. I hope everyone was able to escape the city, though, before it sinks to the bottom of the ocean like they say it is going to. But I don't know. We never question it again. We never really cut back to that. So that was Metal Masters. As I've said before, Metal Masters is my favorite of the Metal Saga. It has my favorite character in the form of Masamune as the deuteragonist. He's extremely engaging as a character to me. I really like the premise of the World Tournament because it gives the plot a lot more focus than it had during a fair portion of Metal Fusion. That being said though, it does have a very so-so climax that I feel almost betrays everything that we experienced before that point in Metal Masters. Regardless, this was the part of the Metal Saga I watched the most as a kid because it was always airing during summertime and I had time during the summer to get up and watch cartoons during the morning. And I would always eagerly await for what would happen next, you know? It was really exciting and it's extremely nostalgic for me. It'll always hold a special place in my heart and I wanted to share that with you guys. Next time we were talking about Metal Fury, the final in our Metal Saga Retrospective trilogy. And I will see you guys until then, because it's probably going to take a while. Hey guys, I just wanted to say that if you have reached this message, thanks for watching the video. I'm super happy that you made it this far, or if you skipped, it's fine too. Thank you for clicking in the first place, you know? I just wanted to talk about some things first. So, a lot of people were asking where part 2 was this entire time, and I'm gonna be honest, I was working on it. I really was, but the truth be told, I clarified this in some comments, but I'll spell it out really clearly right here. While I was making part 1, I got really burnt out, as in, I started to not actually enjoy it at all. The way I made part 2 is very different from how I made part 1, and it was a lot easier this time around, so honestly, I wouldn't take it back, even though this was a much longer video overall, right? And another thing is that I suddenly felt a lot more motivation to make this video after I saw that people genuinely wanted to see this, and that makes me happy, you know? I think that's awesome, and I just want to say thank you guys. So, part 3 isn't going to be out for a while because I was making this video and releasing it right before, literally the weekend before my college starts up again, so just wanted to make that clear. I am working on other things right now, but I just wanted to leave this message here at the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Have a nice day.